the curtains reveal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Eric, let's begin.
Yeah.
So, hey, welcome to now this technically is the second podcast that I've done. The first one was with a mechanic, and I'm going to post that one eventually too. But that was really raw,
Yeah.
and this one is actually I'm getting a little bit more of a formulation to the podcast, which I want you to feel relaxed,
Yeah.
feel comfortable. You're in the hot seat, the red
Yeah.
chair.
Yeah.
So
I know we were joking. I'm glad I didn't wear a red shirt today. That would have been
Um, yeah, well, I mean, even if you did, it's all right. So if we have some technical difficulties, we might have to just scrap this whole thing. Hopefully, we can talk for anywhere from 30 minutes to an
yeah.
hour, depending on where the conversation takes us. I do want to eventually have some like audio visual aids for us, but I'm still learning this program, so
Yeah.
you'll have to just kind of forgive me on that. So, but so Eric, one of the things that I've come to know you through is basically the bicycle.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's almost the going to be the common thread and theme of a lot of the podcasting conversations that I have with people is just like, hey, tell me about how you're into bikes. So actually, one of the first questions that I always want to ask somebody is, do you recall or remember when you first learned how to ride a bicycle?
I do. It's one of those a fond memory with a bit traumatic and dramatic. That classic scene of being held. I remember my mom holding me on the sidewalk, like getting that balancing moment. And just as that moment of freedom and balance came to me, I steered and rode straight into our lamppost on our front lawn.
Oh,
And yeah, so that's a very vivid moment in my memory for sure.
so was it your mom who taught you how to ride,
Yeah.
or was it?
Yeah, I guess thinking about it now, that was if I think of the like that moment of like really understanding riding, being on two wheels, yeah, that was that moment. And then from there I think it was a quick, escalation into ripping around the neighborhood.
Were you, so when you finally learned how to ride,
Yeah.
like was it like almost immediately the next day you're just like tearing
Yeah.
it up, or were you just like I'm still kind of learning and
Yeah,
skittish?
I think that the skittishness probably didn't last long. There was definitely an immediate like that sense of freedom you get from being on a bike, and then at that point it was, I had the freedom just to rip around the neighborhood, disappear, and be back when it was dark, right?
Yeah.
So there was no sense of fear, skittishness around being on a bike, and probably a sense of immediate enjoyment.
Do you remember age?
Goodness, I don't. That would have been like 6 to 8, maybe. Like
Okay.
certainly not. Like I remember being on a 3-wheel ripping around younger, but and I'm sure we'll get into it. But growing up in Canada, it's I'm skating. I'm skating before I can walk, right? So it's
Oh, wow.
the bike comes
So
later.
yeah, you're Canadian.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
welcome to the States. How long you been here?
So yeah, I've been in Alabama just over 2 years now.
Uh-huh.
So and certainly call it home. It's definitely become home.
Um, where in Canada did you primarily?
Yes, I grew up in southern Ontario. So for frame of reference, like I just tell people, typically an hour southwest of Toronto.
Oh,
So
okay.
sort of the suburbs of the GTA or Greater Toronto area.
Do you still play hockey?
I don't. I would love to. It doesn't seem like there's hockey from a recreational standpoint. I don't think it exists here in Huntsville. I don't.
Oh, they've got a rink here.
Yeah, I don't. Is there a men's league or like
Yeah,
a? Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah.
Well,
There's
to answer that question, then maybe
yeah.
I
I
might.
can get you in touch with one of my good customers who, like, that's his jam.
Oh, that's
Is
awesome.
yeah. He's huge into hockey.
Yeah.
So if he's not on the bike,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, have you been riding? No, I've been
Yeah.
playing hockey. So
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
he's into it. Yeah, I can get you connected.
That'd be awesome.
Jasper. So if you hear this,
Yeah.
his name's Jasper, and he's really into it.
Oh,
So
wicked.
what else? What else are you into?
Well, so if we start like in sports, so I grew up hockey, baseball. That was 12 months of my life, it was baseball almost year round. So I played AAA, like travel baseball up until.
All right. So, sorry, I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah.
Toronto Blue Jays.
Yes.
Was that your team?
Yeah.
Then?
I like growing up going to the Sky Dome, especially that era of when, like those, was it 93, 94 World Series?
That always confused me because, it's American baseball,
Yeah.
but then you have the Toronto, that's the only Canadian team, right? That's in the MLB.
There used to be like a Quebec and East Coast, like an Eastern team, the Astros, but the Blue Jays are kind of Toronto's baseball or Canada's baseball team at this point.
I guess, and that's why they can call it the World Series, because technically it involves another country.
Yeah.
So anytime you
now it's a world, and but yeah, growing up, it was baseball.
Baseball, yeah, me too. That's in fact, I probably enjoy just the sport of the. What do you think about some of the new rules that they've changed with the pitch count or the timer clock and
see? And I think I haven't followed it, and I think all of those are great, because where I lost interest was the pace of the game.
Yeah.
Like it's the one I tell people, I'm like, it's the one sport I played like 12 months of the year at a fairly high level that I could never stand watching.
What position did you play?
I was pitcher and catcher.
Yeah, okay.
And I loved it immensely, like winter ball, like indoor training year round, but I cannot watch baseball.
Who's your favorite baseball player? Of all time?
It's like Pat Borders was like I'm gonna go back to some like classic Blue Jays, like John Allrood. We're going back to classic Blue Jay, Kelly Roberto Alomar, famous second baseman that spit in the face of the umpire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so
for me, Tony Gwynn.
Okay.
Mainly because consistently, best batting average, could get on base. Like
Absolutely.
That's what you want. He was the guy who clutch player, get on base, get it, like hitting record off the charts. So but
hopefully like the rules, I hope because I'm sure that's an issue for them when you look at other sports, is the pace of play. Like you watch hockey or football or basketball, it's from an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, people want that fast action these days.
Yeah.
I think basketball.
Yeah.
Like people want that like quick score, move
Absolutely.
down and they want the highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of you ever pay attention to WNBA?
Not just like barely. I wouldn't even call myself like a basketball like fan.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not really a sports guy.
Yeah.
Those are the times when there's Alabama football or Auburn football. Yeah. It's like I'm going on a ride because the streets are clear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's quiet. Everyone's inside. Yeah. Yeah, no, I grew up like, to go back, like hockey, baseball, basketball, football, played football all through high school. And then as team sports, as I sort of drifted away from the team sport concept, was like I wanted to get into golf. Like it was the Tiger Woods era. Like I think there'll probably be a trend throughout my story of like very impressionable of like icons. And I remember that, like seeing Tiger Woods and thinking like, what is that? What is golf? Like didn't grow up in golf. Parents knew nothing about it. And I was just like, sorry, like I'm done with hockey, baseball. Like that guy on TV looks awesome. Like I want to do that.
What did Mark Twain say? I think he said golf is a nice walk ruined.
The best way to ruin a nice walk is
that's funny. Yeah, golf is, man, talk about a hard sport to like ever, and you can never, like once you think you got it, you something changes and you don't have it anymore. You almost have to be in a rhythm with like nature and life. And I love when I hit the ball, if it goes up in the air, it looks like a golf shot, I get excited. I don't care where it was. Like I look like a golfer now.
I can see the ball still. It kind of went where I was aiming. We're still in play. Like we're golfing now.
Yeah. That's
absolutely.
Oh man, sports. Yeah, I'm not just like you. It's just like I played for a little bit of everything
Yeah,
growing up. I'm almost one of those guys who can like, all right, let me jump into this and try this out and
yeah,
be decent at it, but I'm
yeah,
not gonna be amazing.
yeah,
Um, I'm I'm your in cycling. I'm your domestique.
yeah,
I'm the guy who's like, yeah, I'll bring you sandwiches,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
help you win, but
yeah.
that's all I got.
Awesome. Yeah.
But you, like, that's a great transition for you into you raced kind of professionally. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. So, and maybe to give a bit of background there. So that was the golf, like played golf for quite a few years, ended up playing in tournaments and in some like US, Canada, like Canamera tournaments. And then on trend with that, there's this guy named Lance Armstrong that came along who,
Wait, who?
yeah, it was this guy rode around the country or something and won a few bike races. And that piqued my interest. And I had always had that interest in cycling. I remember asking my dad to take me to a BMX race when I was like 12. Again, knowing nothing, like no idea. It seemed like something I wanted to do. So there's always these like little bits of like cycling was always there through the hockey, baseball, basketball, football, golf. And then Lance Armstrong came along and there's the media and a bit of info being shared. And I was like, oh, this is really like, I'm really fascinated by this like individual like drive and, and that aspect of the sport and the health. And to be honest, the health portion of it, like I was reasonably overweight through my late teens. Like
Mm,
I'm 6'3" and I was probably 230 pounds when I was 18. So there
okay.
was like a sense of like fitness and interest in fitness. And then, yeah, and that got me into the sport probably in my early 20s and sort of a slow transition of, just learning to ride, riding with people, and then meeting people who raced and they would, take me on group rides and kind of they mentored me along the way and showed me and brought me into the sport. And then yeah, I just remember hearing about a bike race like half an hour from me and I'm like, well, I want to go try that. Like no idea. And it was a crit race downtown. Like thinking about it now, it's probably the worst way to enter the sport.
Right,
Like
right.
a high speed criterium downtown Kitchener, Ontario. Like, I didn't have a license. No idea. I barely had bike shorts at that point. So
You won. Like,
no, I know.
right? You won.
I was shelled immediately within 5 laps, and like everything else, that moment of I'm terrible at this, I couldn't be more excited to dive back in the next day
Oh, that's great.
to to acknowledge what was needed, what I was missing, and what was the next little carrot.
So you mentioned kind of having a mentor along the way. Is there anybody that particularly stands out?
Yeah, like on a personal level, I was introduced to my coach, who became my coach, Frank Foglin, for almost 10 years. I was introduced to him early on, probably my second year of racing. Just we kind of crossed paths through another a buddy I knew who was racing at a high level, and he was like, "Oh, you should meet Frank, and he can maybe provide some guidance." And yeah, little did I know it would, start in a simple training, support and nutrition support to a lifelong, like personal mentor. And yeah, provided a ton of guidance just through life.
Um, how long was he kind of in your cycling career? Because when did you transition to kind of pro riding?
Yeah, it was probably within, I think it was possibly 5 or 6 years into road racing. So you go through the typical like category 3 when you
Yeah.
enter road, then you get into 2.
Well, no, for me, it's category 5
Yeah,
is
well,
where
now,
I.
yeah, and that's what's great. Now I think I do look at it. Like, even in Canada, they do. I think they have a 4 or 5 category now. But before, like your first race would be Cat 3, so it could
Wow.
potentially be with people who were really fast, but just didn't want to progress to
Yeah.
elite level distances. So I spent a couple years in category 3 racing, crits, road, and a bit of cyclocross at that time. And then yeah, and then I got my Pro 1-2 license probably 5, 6 years in. I had signed a contract with the Garneau Continental UCI road team,
Yeah.
which was my first sort of entry into like proper professional road racing, and entrance into like some very large UCI. Back then, there were actually road races in the US and North America, like proper 3 day, 20,000 people come out to watch the Criterium on the Saturday night, like just like proper huge 3 day tour stage races.
Yeah, I feel like the road scene is been on the decline for many year now. So I don't necessarily know. I don't know if it's a combination of finding sponsorship or if it's state of and culture of events. I don't know.
Yeah,
I I think I wonder if participation trophies come into play on something like that. Everybody wants to have a
yeah,
because there's not. I mean, road racing is hard.
it's not
Like
easy.
you lose a lot,
Yeah,
and there's like if you're a consistent winner, it's because you have a team supporting you.
yeah,
Did
yeah,
you like in your team that you were riding for?
yeah,
Where did you stack with? I guess your role in the
yeah.
team.
Yeah, and that is what you quickly learn is it is a very unselfish. If you want to be successful in road racing, it's typically very unselfish. Like because I was say a domestique, we had basically our sprinter, and most racing in North America would come down to sprints. So he's who we would work for. So it's a lot. Like it's some of those races are 180K where you're just out there and you're probably not going to make the finish, but that's just the reality of your job is to
Yeah.
mark moves, be in breaks, and make sure the designated captain or leader for that day is going to get to the end with the most amount of energy.
Is there ever a day you're like, all right, I'm done. I quit. This is not fun anymore. Because I'd imagine you have to have a sense of enjoyment
Yeah,
to like stick to a training schedule, then like have your races mapped out and okay, I got to be here, I got to be there, and you're really, you know, you think, oh, I'm a pro rider. You think, oh, you're living the glamorous life, and you're really living probably in the back of a car the majority of the time.
yeah, yeah. There's one specific moment, and it was probably 3 or 4 years into racing pro elite. A really serious crash. It was one of those. I wasn't going to go to the race. And then partway through decided, you know what, I'll use it for training because national road championships were 2 weeks after. And so I just wanted some speed in my legs. And I found myself at the front. I was like super fit at that time. And I told myself I wouldn't be at the front. I'll just pull out, one lap to go because it was just 4 corners. And wherever anyone came out of that last corner was probably going to be the finishing order. So I decided I'd peel back. And then coming into the last lap, I was like, oh, well, I'm third wheel and I'm just sitting in, I'm getting pulled along, all the legs in the world. And just as I came to the second last corner, a rider had dove in to my front wheel, and we were probably doing 60 kilometers an hour at this point. So
Oh,
35, 40 miles an hour on flat. And he kind of brushed the curb into my front wheel. I go down, and then probably 80 guys
just
used me as a
bummer.
landing pad.
Wow.
And so no bit of skin left, bike in pieces. And there I am 5 hours from home. So I'm getting scrubbed up by the paramedics and now getting into a car,
Oh,
like with all the wounds weeping, stopping at gas stations, trying to like, yeah, it was that moment made me like reevaluate road racing. And maybe that's where a lot of the, not death of the sport, but the decline is your life is in the hands of that group. And that's
yeah.
where gravel, triathlon, cyclocross, mountain bike, even like if something goes bad, it's usually on you. But in
Yeah.
road, if something goes
Just one.
bad,
It's on.
someone else probably did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I so 60 kilometers an hour. For those of you who don't know what that is, um, I mean, you're 30 to 35 miles an hour. That's crazy fast on a bike.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you, do you, I know sometimes when I encroach that speed, which has been very few and far between,
Yeah.
and you're in a race scenario, I start to get tunnel vision at that
Yeah.
point. Um, when you're when you're in that zone and you're at that pace and that kind of event, like what are you able to think about?
It's tough. Like looking back now, you kind of realize like it's a like some of those criterium races at the elite level are almost 2 hours long, and it is a real like you really lose track of time and space because you're hyper focused for every split second, and you don't
Yeah.
even realize it because you're just like your body's kind of naturally reacting to the group, the pavement, like the speed. Yeah, it's I've never been more tired from just from the mental energy it takes to focus for at those speeds. So there's crits where we would average 51 kilometers an hour.
Oh man.
So you're just like, what
That's
is going on here?
okay. So you've had that chapter in your life.
Yeah.
What's your current passion? You
Yeah, current passion. I obviously love to be on the bike.
okay?
I can't. It's kind of always come and gone in waves of level of enthusiasm and investment in riding. But through all of it, to be honest, like I have a huge passion for art, drawing, and music.
Oh yeah.
So I actually went to university for fine arts and like graphic art. So that was always like drawing and painting was a passion of mine through sort of everything and trying to balance, you know,
Yeah.
the sporting and the artistic stuff. And
So is there a medium?
for me, charcoal pastel, like
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
like oil pastel.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Do you well, in the charcoal
yeah.
art world, do you find time to do that, or is it like you got to be inspired?
Yeah, it's really become sort of an inspiration.
Okay.
Like it's a shame, but it's like I can go months without drawing or picking up my sketchbook, and then if something is inspiring or I feel like I'm losing touch and I need that outlet, like I'll start a piece of artwork, like whether it's a landscape or a portrait or something. Yeah, it's definitely comes in like a heightened wave of like, oh, I need this outlet, and I become hyper focused and invest a ton of time and energy into it. And yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like um, my daughter does a lot of drawing. She's
Oh,
good, but
amazing.
when do you know? And this is for me. And I'm not an
Yeah.
artist, but when do you know what you're working on is done?
Yeah, it's probably a feeling of like I always joke like I'd probably even say it out loud like I need to walk away.
Okay.
There's just this moment where you're like you can feel like you're overworking something thing, and there's probably an aspect in a lot of cases where you feel like something's being forced at this point. Like it's like, okay, now I'm forcing the shape or line, or I've added too much, like this needs to be edited. I need to walk away. Like
Yeah.
this is that moment. um yeah, it's just kind of comes about. It's sort of, you can feel like a build through the piece where you kind of have this moment of like, this isn't really anything, like I should walk away, this isn't going to happen. But then you kind of push through that moment, and then it starts to come together and it builds, and you can kind of feel that like, okay, now I'm putting the finishing touches, and it needs to be left alone, like it's done.
Did you go to school to you kind of majored in the art
Yeah.
specifically, or was it?
Yeah, and I had this like I really wanted to teach.
Oh,
Like I
okay.
had this like I really wanted to share art and teaching. Like that's really what I thought I wanted to do. And then through university, fortunately or unfortunately, I really found the bike. Like that was that
Yeah.
time of like this new physical and emotional endeavor that became all consuming. And I was like, I don't know if teaching's for me. I think like if I can find a way to mix this passion, which seems like very like serious at this point, with a career, like I think that's the goal of
Yeah.
life, is to find that, do what you love and try and mix that
Do
work
you,
and pleasure.
do you find time to teach currently, like with anything?
Yeah, I do. I had through racing, I tried to set aside as much time and get involved in local community activation, and especially specifically, we hadn't mentioned like cyclocross was a major focus for me. Like that really took me, around the globe from a racing standpoint. And that was a sport I was so passionate about, and could see the entry to, like, the barrier to entry seemed pretty intimidating, but I really wanted to share my love and like interest in this sport. So I used to run clinics. Like, I would volunteer at our local like ski hill that held races.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do learn to cyclocross clinics, and I would do some one-on-one training with anybody who wanted it.
You Are you a good bunny hopper? Can you?
Yeah. This will date me. It's, when I was full-fledged, bunny hopping was like, that was not even like, what are you talking about? That's never gonna happen. And now I watch like Vanderpool and the top guys, and I'm like, they're not even on clipping anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I certainly have bunny hopped a few barriers in my lifetime, but having long legs, it's a wild thing where you'd be surprised how fast at speed the top guys can clip out and clip back in.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, now it's the like age of the just ride the whole course.
You said also music. Do you play any instruments?
Yeah, so I play guitar
Okay.
in like my spare time. It was definitely like music. Like, we have a bit of a musical background in my family, and especially my dad's side of things, and it was always part of growing up. Like, he plays instruments. All of his brothers were in bands, so that was always in the background, I think, of like all the sports activities. So yeah, I taught myself how to play guitar probably around 30, and have, try to play a few hours every week.
Wait, so you taught yourself?
Yeah, well, there's like,
do you just YouTube it? Is that what you did?
This amazing thing called the internet. Yeah, you can teach yourself to, install a tubeless tire, to change your rotors on your car, and learn to play guitar, right?
Create some kind of podcast thing. All of this, hopefully, actually, I think it's still working.
Perfect.
I'm looking at the monitor. If you ever see my eyes look past you, it's because I'm looking at this monitor, make sure all the things. I just started YouTube and all this, and like, hey, I've got a kind of fit studio here. It'd be kind of cool to interview people from time to time. You might have heard, if you're listening, some noise in the background. We're in the store on a cold, frigid February day.
Yeah.
But yeah, YouTubed all that. So you prefer acoustic, electrical?
Yeah, electric. I think, and I have to thank my dad for that. Like, he really instilled like blues music in me, and sort of the history of music. So, even learning, I was just immediately like fascinated by blues and the roots of music. So Freddie King, Albert King, BB King, the whole.
Are you so Canadian, and you're in the kind of the South? Have you visited places like Memphis or Louisiana,
not
New
as
Orleans?
Yeah, not as much as I want to. It's definitely like something I need to do this summer, is spend more time immersing myself in the communities and the culture that's here.
Is there a favorite musician that speaks to you that you like? Oh man, I default to this style of play.
Yeah, Freddie King every time. Freddie King. Just that amazing like showmanship, professionalism, incredible skill, like passion.
I think for me, I'm the worst when it comes to music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's because I've been in the retail space and environment for so long. There's always music playing. So when I'm done with work, it's always playing in the background. And so when I'm done with work, it's just like, I got to shut off music.
Yeah.
So I can, normalize myself, I guess. Yeah. So I actually default to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been in the industry and in a retail environment, and there's always somebody's like, oh, let's play some music in the background. So.
Well,
and I've got an eclectic taste.
Yeah.
So it's just like, have you heard of them? Like, yeah, but I couldn't tell you any of their songs because it's always playing in the background. So.
Yeah, and then if you ride, and then there's that whole aspect where, I spent so much time on the bike by myself training that there's always an earbud in my right ear, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like music's almost always going.
Yeah, all right. Do you have a training genre or musician that like, all right, time to go, I'm gonna listen to them because I can get in the zone?
Yeah, there is a guilty pleasure of like mashup DJ playlists on SoundCloud, like that. yeah, it's I've had some of them on non-stop replay for 12 years. Like there's playlists that if I listen to now, they trigger a moment, or like a driving to like Gloucester, Massachusetts for a race. There's songs that I hear that
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, like
Do
that was
you
a warm up.
did you ever default to, okay, this has a certain beat sequence that helps me improve my pedal stroke or keeps me in heart rhythm or something like that?
Yeah, I think the mashup, like that mid to high level beat, not crazy fast, and a rhythm that I could understand, uh, was the default.
Mm,
Because I do find, unfortunately, like even now, I typically don't just ride very often. Like I hate to admit, like almost all my rides are interval. Like I'm doing something when I'm riding.
yeah.
Like there's a 5 minute section, a 10 minute. Like there's usually a purpose to every ride.
You do you have any bikes that are just like your cafe cruisers,
No,
coffee shop
no, and I
bike?
really should. I should. And you know what I've done over the last 10 years, as of like slowly left racing but still continued to ride. I keep removing the power meter from my bike. And then without a
Ooh,
doubt, like every time within 2 months, it's like, as you can see, there's
yeah,
a power meter on my most recent road bike. And
yeah. It's that metric is just a fun metric to see. It's I
yeah,
don't know why,
yeah,
because I don't even like heart rate is probably the next best metric in my opinion,
yeah,
but I hate looking at heart rate because it can change so drastically. But
yeah,
s- seeing what your normalized power is always just like, ooh, I'm in shape, or
yeah,
I need to work out.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, tell me, not to cut you off or anything. Tell me about this little rig of yours right here.
Yeah, well, this is, yeah, like I said, my most recent road bike, or current road everything bike. I'm definitely a big proponent. I've always been of like some sort of drop bar bike with like fat slick tires.
Mm,
Like I used to always like really really only owned a cyclocross bike for so many years for training, because I could run fatter tires and ride it everywhere. And now you can get, a high performance road bike that takes 32 mil tires, and
yeah,
this thing is like, it's safe on all roads. It's crazy fast. It's super
and
comfortable.
comfortable. Those
Yeah.
those fatter tires are
Yeah.
comfortable. I remember starting out in the biz, and it was like, I want 700 by 18,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, yeah. Like I worked. I was a rep in Southern Ontario for almost 12 years with HLC, so one of the largest distributors, if not the largest in Canada. So I'd work with Michelin, Pirelli,
yeah,
Goodyear, Kenda. So yeah, I remember selling cases of 23 mil Pro 2 tires at that point, right?
yeah.
And now I wouldn't think of going less than 32 mil.
Oh yeah. So we had you in here. That's why this rig is on that stand. We did a little bike fit on you.
Yeah.
How has being in a position on a bike been for you when it's been designed for you?
Yeah.
When I guess let me rephrase that question. When could you tell the difference of a bike that fit you and was manipulated and adjusted for you versus before that? Like,
Yeah.
how was that? How did that mentally change for you?
It it's a huge mental win for sure, because there's that initial, and sometimes people don't even realize it, that they're fighting through these little feelings that they just think are normal but are actually adjustment issues. Like whether it's like my knee feels like it's being forced in one direction, or I'm getting a hip pain, or a quad pain, but they just kind of go through it, when in reality, when those adjustments are made and you find that, like I like to say, like the pocket that you sit in, where
Mhm.
everything kind of just goes together and you're just pedaling. There's no numbness, no discomfort, no weird irritations. It
And
is,
you're a tall guy, so
yeah,
6'3",
6'3", yeah,
and with being 6'3", I'd imagine you've probably gone through 3 or 4 different frames that you're like, oh, this would be perfect for me. Oh no, it's not,
yeah,
because being 6'3", you're right at that, like, you could probably fit size 58 and above somewhere, depending on the frame. And so you've got to be really conscientious of how you ride to know, like, oh, that's my next bike, and that's my next bike size.
Yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, like especially now, like in terms of, you know, endurance road bike, gravel bike, like aero bike, climbing bike, and geometries are sort of all over the place. And but yeah, I've over the last 15 years have I it's funny, like I can see a bike on paper and almost know like, oh, that's either a bike for me or not a bike for me. Like there's usually key little indicators, whether it's angles, head tube height. Yeah, it's, and coming from typically a more aggressive position, especially like in cyclocross, which was like very like aggressive in a lot of cases. Yeah, it's yeah, there's some bikes that I really steer towards and some that are just like, oh, this not gonna work for me.
Where's been your favorite place to ride? Because you've kind of been all over, it seems.
Yeah.
Is there a location that you're like, man, that
Yeah.
was the best? And it doesn't have to be, you know, a race. It could
Yeah.
be like, hey, I just was, you know, here on vacation and took a 20-mile spin to shake out my legs, and I saw the most fantastic view. Or, you know, is there a place like that that comes to mind?
Yeah, there's probably two, and they're very different and for different reasons. The first one being almost 15 years ago. The goal in Ontario is to escape the Ontario winter. Like if you're racing, and to find training locations, and South Carolina and even Alabama is a hotspot for Canadians to train in the spring. But I had heard about this place called Malibu, California, like Santa Monica, like mountains. You could fly there. You could, you know, walk out of the airport and you'd be in mountains. And I remember I went there for the first time, just rented a random Airbnb. And I remember riding up the coast and just seeing these like endless amount of canyon roads and winding climbs. And I was like, well, this is it. Like there can't be anything. Like what more could you possibly want? So I would go back and do training camps. I did 4 years in a row. Just you could fly from Pearson. In the morning, I could be on my bike at noon.
Wow.
And in the mountains. So
that's
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you travel with your bike? Did you?
Yeah, I would fly out there. First year I went with a guy I raced with. He was on a separate team, but we were just close friends. We figured we'd kind of navigate it together.
But you're flying, right, on a plane, so
you
just booked it on the flight.
Yeah, just booked the bike. And then the second greatest place I've ever ridden my bike is Roubaix, France. Like the cobblestones in a field. Yeah, Paris-Roubaix, cobbles in in a field in the middle of nowhere, just being rattled to death. And you're like, well, again, this is like, what more could you want? Like I'm so uncomfortable. I'm in so much pain, and I'm gonna cry because it's so beautiful, right?
Yeah, that's like this is a one-day classic that is probably the most famous one-day classic in the world. And that's a brutal race. Yeah,
it's eye-opening. And even just that European to North American shift and trying to adapt and immerse yourself in their culture and racing, nothing can prepare you for it.
I think you can be the most well prepared or trained person, and the gods of racing and nature and the ghosts of Paris-Roubaix decide who's going to win that. Because anything can go wrong. A technical issue, a fan getting in the way, weather, whatever.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, roll the dice, right? They call it. It's just
and there a lot of times there's so many finishes where they're crossing the line and just caked in mud. It's like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
And then you're like, because it's Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah. And I've done an infinite number of those races where you are partway through and you are regretting and hating every moment. You're like, I will never do this again. And then we joke the second you're in your car driving home, you're like, when can I register for the next one? All right. It's that weird moment that we all kind of go through. Maybe not all of us, but I certainly.
There's undoubtedly there's a moment in every race where the first thought was, why am I doing this? I don't like this. And then you get into the groove and you realize, oh, I do like this.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I could do this better next year,
Yeah.
or this is going to prepare me for better for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
addiction almost.
Yeah. There's only, and one moment stands out where I had that moment of absolute suffering. I was probably 40 minutes into the World Cup in Roubaix, the cyclocross World Cup. And I remember I'd come through a section, and there's probably 10 to 15,000 fans at these races just cheering and screaming. And it was in a random section. And I just remember this group of kids yelling non-professional, because I was so far behind like Sven Nys and Steve are the leaders at that point. And I remember that was the only time where I questioned them, like, well, that was so demoralizing in a mental capacity that I didn't even realize could exist, right? Like I could deal with the leg burning and the like trying to choke back blood, but that hearing like these kids banging on a fence. I'm like, okay, that stunk.
Yeah, but I'm out here, kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you paid to come watch me race, so.
All right, so grew up riding, doing all the sports, artist, musician, former pro cyclist. What spins the yarn these days?
Yeah, honestly,
I don't even know if that's a phrase.
Yeah, spins the yarn. It could be. What keeps me busy? Definitely balancing work. Like my new role with Muck Off as the North American sales and brand manager has been keeps me very busy. Ever growing brand that is heavily immersed in community, retail, everything. That's more or less all encompassing. I'm still trying to ride.
Yeah,
few days a week is always a goal, at least 3 to 4 times.
So Muck Off's a fun company. They come out with some great innovations to keep your bike healthy and clean.
Yeah.
And then now more than ever, they're introducing some stuff in relation to tubeless tires and setups like that. So that's kind of fun to always have. And I gotta say, I appreciate you bringing a clean bike to the fit. That's really nice.
Yeah. So. It's at least like it'd probably be a bit of a bad tell if I showed up with a greasy, dirty bike and then was mentioning, by the way, we also have we're the premier maintenance brand, but this is a mess. Don't worry about it.
That's how long have you been doing that then?
So I've been with Muck Off for just over a year and a half.
Okay.
Previous relationship with them when I was in Canada, I was one of many brand reps, but with Muck Off for 7-8 years up there. So very familiar with the brand. So a bit of a history with them, but have been with them for a year and a half here in Huntsville. Yeah.
So I'm getting distracted in the back because we're live with the air compressor. So I don't think the mic's going to pick it up, but we'll see what kind of happens. Do you, in terms of your role with Muck Off, and then what's your travel like? You said North America, but you're not just the only rep, right? Are they dispersed throughout?
So yeah, there's 6 of us who sort of oversee North American like infield companies based out of Poole, England. So we do obviously have like headquarters support, but there is a small team of us in the US. And then obviously we rely on our distribution partners and direct retailers. So travel had been quite a bit. We're certainly scaling back and trying to focus. Like big ones being Sea Otter is a massive event for us coming up in a couple of weeks.
That's a fun event. That has everything.
Yeah, I definitely recommend. Like it's that one if you're a 2-wheeled enthusiast.
Yeah, you got to go to Sea Otter.
3-4 days.
Just plan to see all the crazy stuff. I mean, new products typically are tested and launched there. There's tons of media outlets, going through and trying to get sneak peeks at things. And then the racers and then the fans.
And it really feeds, like, we're still family owned and operated. Alex and his mom who started the company. And so there's a big part of the company and still the ethos around that community and rider engagement and direct involvement. So for Sea Otter, it's massive for us. We have a 6 wash, pressure washer station set up that we're washing bikes for 3 days straight, upwards of 4,000 bikes.
Oh, they put you to work then.
We have a full retail setup, but then we also have a full separate setup, and we are the official like title sponsor for lifetime for all their bike washes. So Leadville, Unbound, Sea Otter. So yeah, and that is part of the, we really want to support, like, this is all done for free and no charge, but we want to support the people who are out there using our product and supporting the events, and we want to support those events in turn and create a better experience for the, like, I've done an endless number of gravel races where I just remember finishing and you just look at your bike and you're like, I don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where we're there to take care of it for you. And then you can.
Oh man, I love clean, happy bike. A friend of mine had a phrase a long time ago, and it was when I was, just a learning mechanic, and he said, "A clean bike is a happy bike." And it's like, oh man, it's so true. When you have properly running bike, it's always because it's clean.
Yeah.
So having the products and the things that make it easier is nice, especially if you're like most of the people that I know, always in a time crunch. They have family obligations, job, work. But their hobby, their passion is just being out on the bike and trying different trails and events and things, and having something where it's like, oh, I can get this taken care of, lickety splits, great. So I use it here, muck off products religiously here. So it makes it easy.
Amazing.
So yeah. What else do you want to talk about? Anything else on your mind?
That's kind of what's going on.
I'll open the floor to you. I've been asking you a ton of questions. So you got anything on your mind? I'm politics.
I'm excited and eager to see where the season goes cycling. Like from a community, I'm still getting to learn Alabama and the community here. So I'm really excited to get more involved locally and see what I can, be part of or help with.
Alabama's a really unique state because you have northern Alabama, completely different than middle Alabama, which is completely different than southern Alabama, which is pretty much right there on the coast of the Gulf of America.
There you go. The updated.
Right. But it's like here in Huntsville area. I mean, I think it's got some of the best riding because you have, if you want flats, you got it. If you want to climb some hills, you got it. But man, there's some places in Alabama that I probably would never ride because it's like country, and you got to know. You better know where you are. But it's really unique. And then there's other places you go, lickety split up north and you're in Tennessee and you're riding just fine and no one cares and it's great.
It's every day it kind of reveals.
We're not all Canadians.
No, well, Erik. And it's funny. I like I've had this conversation probably more than any other, which is people are like, oh, like every like the stereotypes of Alabama, like why? How could you possibly want to be here? And I'm like, I remind, everywhere in the world is the same for the most part, from what I've seen. You have good people everywhere. You have basic people. You have bad people, mean people. It exists everywhere. I promise you. Some of the most quote unquote hillbilly people I've ever met are an hour outside of Toronto, and they would blow your mind, right? Like some of the worst bicycle interactions I've ever had are absolutely in Southern Ontario, Canada, like from road rage, it's and some of the friendliest people and nicest people I've ever met are here for sure. It's
that's
and some of the best riding, to your point. It's
I think so. I mean, we don't have highway coast highway 1 views, but still there's some routes that I take and I'll pause and I'll look out and you can see just hill and valley, and it's just like, oh man, that's just awesome. Catch it on the right day, you see forever. It's awesome. So.
And the trail network, like I think there's so much being invested into like the trail system at Montesano and giving that, like, because it really is that, like, you have to build that playground if we want people. Like, you're not gonna sell mountain bikes if there's no trails,
right?
So these groups, I tried to be a big advocate and support their race series last year because I love that grassroots event that supports the whole community and riders and industry. So and Huntsville has a fantastic.
And I think that's how you grow anything is invest in
Yeah.
something locally.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big corporations that try to establish things, but it's got to start
Yeah.
where the you know here with Hammer. I mean, the coolest thing with Hammer is they have work trail days, and you see the people who really love the trails out there working on it,
Yeah.
and they're not only riding, they're improving it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to see them. And you've been heavily involved with the local mountain bike
Yeah, with their race
group. Yeah.
series. Yeah, it's been great. And that was because that was something I got involved in Southern Ontario. We had a local race series, a Tuesday night mountain bike series that started probably 65 people on a Tuesday night, couple races a year. To when I left, it was 10 or 12 races and 500 people on the start line on a Tuesday, almost all family.
Yeah.
No, maybe 5 elite people, but mom, kids, dad, all racing different categories. And it's like, and that's where, so anytime I see a grassroots race like series, it's like I got to be part of it, because it's kind of what I wasn't privy to when I was young. And it's like I just see it's like it's so good for the sport and just showing people how to enjoy their bike. And
At the end of the day, it's also just fun.
oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
even if you're not riding, if you're just there's people are they're just hanging out,
yeah,
enjoying one another, enjoying, especially mountain biking, just enjoying the being outdoors. Especially Montesano's got some great. They've really heavily invested on not only trails but also some I guess infrastructure to help like host little events out there.
Yeah.
It's really great. So.
Oh, and back to your original question. I did my first 50K trail running race a month or so ago.
Oh, yeah, little running race.
Yeah. It's something I kicked around for almost 10 years, and I had trail run. There's a lot of stories to share, but
are you talking about Mountain Mist?
What was it? The Dizzy 50?
Oh, Dizzy 50. Okay.
So that was just before Christmas. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't get sucked into Mountain Mist.
Okay.
Almost did. But yeah, I had, back to that story of wanting to get out of the sport, I took up running and duathlons, which we briefly talked about outside of this. And I got into trail running, but I'd never really done anything more than 15, 20K, but became super interested in ultras, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, randomly I had to get back into running this fall after some back injuries from riding this past summer. And that race popped up, and I was like, well, I ran 15K the other week, should be fine. And yeah, so I ran a 50K trail race, which was a blast.
Wait, did you go from 15K to 50K?
Yeah, I had about 3 weeks of, what did I have? Checked my Strava, like 8 runs on it.
Oh, so you're just kind of naturally gifted in the fitness department. You can do like, I did 3 workouts. I'm back up at the top of my game.
Yeah, I think it may seem like that, but there's a well of hours in the saddle or time in running shoes that, like, there's obviously, like, I think everyone has natural like ability, but like I've spent countless hours in really painful intervals to get to the point where 10 years later I can get on a bike and in a couple of weeks be fit. People are like, oh, you just got fit. It's like, well, I had about 10 years of like suffering. 3 hours every day, like, 20,000 kilometer years on the bike. And
there always seems to be that one person who they do 3 rides and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm fit again. And they're riding at the highest level, and you're just,
but there were years I think I did 40 plus races one year.
Oh, wow.
Because I would race track in the winter, prep for like big gravel races in the spring, race road and a mix of mountain all summer to get ready for like pro cyclocross season.
Yeah.
And then cyclocross would be 2 races every weekend from September to December. So there was there's some years where it was just a 12-month.
What was your diet like that? Did you just consume anything and everything you wanted?
Yeah. It's a lot of you don't shy away from carbs, pizza. It's you really refine a lot of aspects of it, but you can more or less, once you cut the fats out, and I was vegetarian for 10 years, so it was like heavily vegetables and grains, and yeah, so you could pretty much eat everything.
So you said you were vegetarian. Are you still now, or did you
Oh, well,
move
when
in?
you end up in Alabama, you end up eating fried chicken, right? So
Yeah.
it was like there was no way around it. Nashville hot chicken sandwich ended up happening, and
That's
it was
great.
there's a little more balance to in diet.
Have you been able to tell a difference when you were with that diet of vegetarian versus when you incorporate a little bit more meat?
I keep it very minimal now. It initially started out of like a vitamin, an interest in minerals and vitamins, because I would get sick every spring, like a seasonal like head cold, chest infection, and I really just equated it to like a lack of vitamins and minerals and proper balance of diet. So I just started steering into a heavily vegetarian diet, and then it just became that focus. But yeah, slowly incorporating fish back into my diet. It's been pretty nothing's really been affected. I haven't noticed.
Gotcha.
I don't feel sluggish or anything, or it's not like I have a ton more energy, or I still eat pretty like vegetarian or Mediterranean.
Yeah, gotcha. How was the Dizzy 50 with training and diet and finishing? Were you pleased with your performance?
Yeah, I ran the whole thing, which was like I definitely had this. How far am I going to get before I just end up walking for 5 hours? But really, I think there's a lot of talk around nutrition now, but I've really adapted the high carbohydrate intake, and it's taken a few years to slowly get to this point. But yeah, I just kept to roughly 110 grams to 120 grams of carbs an hour, and really, like a lot of these endurance events for most people, if they're fit, it's just a nutrition race.
When people ask or seek advice about like distance training, especially Ironman, I joke with them. I'm like, man, once you get on the bike, it's just an eating competition. You're just eating. You're eating for the next hour.
Yeah.
And you got to find what your stomach can handle. Yeah. You got to find out what you can ingest that doesn't wreak havoc. Yeah. And it's just eating. It's fun.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah. Well, like I joke, I'm like, when I was racing like top level pro elite road race, 180K, we'd leave with like 2 Cliff Bars, couple gels, and then at 2 hours in, you'd be like, well, my legs are getting tired. I should probably eat something. Flip to now where 20 minutes in, I start an eating schedule. So at 3-4 hours in, there no longer is this like depth, like valleys and mountains.
Oh, my Garmin, like I'll be in, and at a certain point, it's like 30 minutes or 45. It tells me like, eat a banana. It does the icon. It triggers it. It's just like it knows my weight. It knows my intensity of what's happening, and like, oh, you need to eat. And I'm not hungry yet. I'm eating for that next hour, and it's one of the best things I've have on my bike, because I'll know how long I'm going. I'm like, oh, I don't need to eat because I'm almost done with the ride. I'll eat when I get done. But if I was going on a longer training ride, I'd be like, oh, didn't forget to eat. Drink.
And and not to get too specific, and just because I've seen it all over like 15-20 years, don't be afraid of sugar. Like it's this weird, I've seen it all in terms of the ketos, the like all of the, well, I'm just gonna eat bacon for 9 hours, and like all these versions. I'm like, there's no way around. There's no other way to put it. Like simple sugar, like to the point of I make my own like sugar water mixes a lot of the time, so I can math out the carbs per minute or hour. It's like, that's like, I just tell people, I'm like, it doesn't really need to be complicated. I know this sounds gross, but just sugar, like you just need to get sugar into your body for performance.
I sometimes have when I know I need to get my base going, I need to go on a long ride, I'll plan it to where I go to a place where I can get a nice sandwich, and I eat a full like hamburger sandwich or something. And man, it's one of the best things ever, because my body just is like, this is what we needed.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and I'm not going hard. I'm going like 13, 14 miles an hour on a long 4-hour ride. And it's training the body to consume the right right things the right way, and natural food is always the best.
Yeah.
I can't stand a lot of the prepackaged
Yeah.
type. I don't want to call
Yeah.
out a brand or a company
Yeah.
but there's some that are just like
Yeah.
straight up just corn syrup.
Yeah, and
and
it gets overcomplicated, I think, a lot of the times, and there's when really you really just need like carbohydrate, like you really just need, like that's what you're burning, like
So-
it's really simple, like
one of my favorite meals before a certain ride in the morning, wake up, I'm just zonked. Bread
yeah,
or toast
yeah,
with butter and jam.
yeah,
Dude, that
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
ready to go then.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For about 10 years, I was not superstitious, but I had before every single race, it was 2 breakfast pitas with Nutella. Like it was because
Nutella's great.
it was palatable, it was easily digested. And yeah, it was just like you get all of those carbs going through your system. There's not a lot of fat, so your body's not struggling through it. And there's no weird cramping.
And you're making me hungry.
Yeah.
I'm ready to eat something.
I know. Yeah. I think definitely. Yeah. And I have to, Nutella is not part of, that's the one thing hasn't re-entered the diet in 8 years.
Oh,
It
mixed
it needed to go when that time of cyclocross left.
Really?
Nutella went
Not
away.
even like a little cheat.
I haven't had Nutella in the house for 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, well, what's next for you? Not in necessarily work or business, or what's next for you in life? Any plans, any vacations, any goals that you have?
Yeah, like every year I kick around, like I am certainly goal or event oriented. I like typically need a carrot to get me out on my bike. Like it's so I've kicked around ideas, like Unbound is one that's always been on my mind, just with a big gravel background and having done a lot of other North American high level races. It's there, but that one's the one where it's like you can put in a year's worth of work and get a flat 5 minutes in, and then there's nothing you can do.
Well, would you go into that with a certain time finishing in mind?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Or would you go into it like, I just want to do it to do it?
I would like to say I would do it to do it, but I would. There's no way I would sign up without expectation. Yeah. There's no way. I can't. Like even the 50K trail race, it was like I was running the math. I'm like, 10K an hour is like really where I want to be.
That's the competitive side of you that comes out from years and years of being in competition. I'm sure.
It's like, I know I'm not going to win. I know that time has passed, but there's certainly I should seed in somewhere.
Yeah.
Like I've done that distance before, but. Yeah, it's I think that for this year would be a big one. UTMB has been on my radar for years. The like 140K trail race through around Chamonix, Mont Blanc, and yeah. So that's that. So now that we've done a 50K, I feel like the next progression.
Just run in France.
Yeah,
eat all the breads, cheeses, and wines. Okay.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to go over and spend some time around the Matterhorn and did some hiking and trail running. So that's always kind of been there, and that how far, again, one of these, like, I know I can do it physically. It really becomes that would be a mental and nutritional challenge that I would love to attempt.
That's where I'd want to do it, but I want to get somebody. How can I get somebody to sponsor me?
Yeah, and there's no way. You can't ignore the fact it's an expensive run.
That's an expensive run.
It's an expensive little run around the.
And I imagine you've got to have some kind of support or something like that.
Yeah,
because you just can't run. How far is it again?
It's 140K for the proper distance.
Okay. So you're looking at 120 miles?
80-ish.
80, okay.
80-ish, 90 miles, yeah.
You said 140. Okay. I can't convert too fast my brain on that. So I wish America
would slowly convert you to metric.
I wish America would convert to
by 10. Who
everything I do on the bike is metric, and I'm always like, oh yeah, that's this, and like I'm so miles per hour in the car. It's crazy. running something that distance, I mean, you watch some of these ultra runners, and they've got a good support team and system
Yeah.
going. I could imagine like doing it solo without any like aid stations to.
Yeah, and I think because I think they have aid stations every 30, 40K, but like when you really look at that, like 30, we're almost near a marathon before you're seeing an aid station, right?
Right.
Now, and I dabbled with I did some bike packing, quite a few bike packing trips that were 6 to 700K. So kind of played with that, like what is a self-supported like trip really look like in terms of food, like clothing. Like there's just a lot of little things you really have to
Mm.
plan for that may or may not happen. Yeah, over 140K, you've got to be ready for a lot, especially from climate, weather, everything.
Probably be fun to when you hit some of those aid stations to see somebody who's your team,
Yeah,
and that motivates
yeah,
you. So it
yeah,
gives you the encouragement to go further, because
absolutely.
you probably get to a point where, am I doing this? I want to quit.
Yeah, yeah. Like, oh, we're going into a second night here. Like, I thought this was supposed to be one night. Like,
So what do you think's more attainable, the Unbound or
UTMB. Yeah.
UTMB?
Unbound from a logistics standpoint, I have more interest
Yeah.
in UTMB because Unbound, I think it's just just from having been in that environment for so many years, like, and being around levels of competition and those like high level, I think there'd be a level of stress that I would place on myself that is entirely unnecessary. Whereas UTMB would be a pure self, like solo challenge.
Mm.
Like there's no sense of competition really. I think that's where more of my interests go now, which is like the 50K. It was just like, I have no idea who's there. I don't really care where I'm going to finish. This is about me like accomplishing something that in my mind is like, this is going to be a challenge. And
You touched on something there, with endurance. You've got to be strong very mentally.
yeah,
You gotta be able to go into and pull yourself out of some dark places, and be fine with yourself solo for a long period of time, and have thoughts,
yeah, yeah.
or be able to not have thoughts
Yeah,
and be
yeah,
okay with that.
yeah. I did a 24-hour solo mountain bike race one year. I'd done a few 8 hours leading up to it, and then I did the 24. And there were times I remember where I got back to my tent set up to grab food, and I couldn't recall the 3 hours through the middle of the night. And this is a very
Ooh,
technical mountain bike trail, like the entire way. And I was like, I do not even remember being on the trail.
wow.
And so you really started to like, it's incredibly dangerous for
Right,
one.
yeah.
And but yeah, there's those moments where, and that was a battle. That was an ultimate test of mental, because physically it's like, that's, you're never racing it. You're just moving. Like you kind of find a pace, and your goal is to just keep moving. You're going to live on a bike basically, but you've got to keep your head like, I can do this. Just keep moving. Like,
Self positive talks
yeah,
are huge on that. Like,
yeah,
get to this point, get to that.
yeah,
There's so many times
yeah,
on an event, and I'm like, all right, just get to that
yeah,
point, see how you
yeah,
feel.
yeah.
All right, I suffered through it.
Yeah.
I can
And you're
move
not the
ahead.
only one. Reminding
Yeah,
yourself, it's like you think you're out there suffering, but you got to remind yourself, even the fastest person, and that's the joke, is as you get faster, you don't suffer less, you just go faster.
yeah.
So you remind yourself, no matter where you are, everybody's hurting. Like,
Mm,
but do you have that thing that allows you just to keep going forward?
yeah. That perseverance
Yeah.
is huge. All right, so man, we covered a lot.
Yeah.
You're fun to chat with.
Yeah.
You're easy to talk to.
We'll
I
have to do
appreciate that.
another,
We might get some requests. I don't know. This is really like podcast number 2.
yeah, yeah. Maybe down the road, the next one will be involved in a pickup men's hockey league.
Yeah, we
6 months from now or something.
get into just talk about hockey the
Yeah.
whole time. Any advice you have on anyone listening to this about what keeps you grounded and motivated to do the things you do, from music to bikes to hopping on a trail run and going for hours on end?
Yeah, I say try everything. Like,
Mm,
don't there's if you want to try something, find, find the people who offer that, whether it's, for me, typically a sport. Find those people and don't be afraid to ask for help, because I've tried so many things. Like, we didn't even get into I got into boxing and end up in I and then I was involved in a charity like boxing tournament and raised money for a cancer society. And there's been all these moments in my life where like I see something that I feel like is very interesting, but we all have that moment of like, I don't know how to get involved. There's a barrier. You're scared,
yeah.
or you're scared to look stupid, or like you don't know how to do it. Embrace that moment, because that's what I find. It's like, acknowledge that you're not going to be great at everything when you start it.
Yeah.
That's fine, and just ask for help and enjoy the process.
Well, especially what we're doing here, like, I don't know if this is going to work at all.
Yeah.
The reason I'm starting a podcast type thing is really to create community.
Yeah.
More so than anything else. There's so many fascinating people on the bicycle, and then they got these extraordinary backgrounds. I've learned more about you than I never, like, now you're throwing in boxing. Like, what have you not done? You know, it's like, oh, I was the fashion runway model.
That was a different time, but no.
but yeah, I mean, like, I hope I can, one, this is recorded correctly, but two, I can take this footage and audio and then, put it out there, and one, it makes sense and upload correctly.
Yeah.
And then two, people find it and maybe listen to it, and then hopefully will draw something from it, whether it entertains them, inspires them, keeps them motivated and positive about a thing that they're into. So yeah, I think that's, you nailed the head, is do it, right? Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do something.
Yeah. And everyone was at that moment of like, this isn't making sense. I can't do this. I'm tripping over my feet. I'm terrible at this. I'm slow. Like, the infinite, everybody was there. And it's like, just like, embrace that path and learning, right? Like, that's what it's about.
Let people yell unprofessional.
Yeah, let them yell, yell unprofessional, or trip over your feet in a boxing gym because you can't even just walk properly. Like, and have humility. Like, just laugh, enjoy, be nice to people. Like, it's like, we're all like, we can all enjoy everything.
Well, man, you're a huge positive force. I've worked with you a few times, and it's like, you're just joyful, It's like, man, I can't wait. He comes into the store and it's like, hey, we're gonna hear some jokes and some good stories and see a smile, and that's always fun. So
awesome.
I really appreciate you, one, doing this on the spot and being so accommodating for it. And I think we're about an hour into it. I was kind of looking when we started, so
amazing.
Hopefully it's entertainment enough and recorded decently.
Hopefully we recorded it. We have audio.
I got a backup here, so hopefully if not, then we'll be able to splice it in. That would be a whole nother thing. But man, I really enjoyed this conversation. So
likewise. Well, thank you, Brandon. I look forward to doing it again. Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back, because you've got some great stories.
There's lots more.
Yeah, I almost want to dive into, like, you growing up in Canada and some of the sides of hockey and those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, we didn't even get into like dealing with flesh eating from road rashes. Yeah, like we can have racing conversations, non-racing conversations, all sorts of conversations.
Okay, well, we'll save some of that for next time. Yeah, appreciate it. We're gonna hit the outgoing logo and close this out.